Well, it's a 1958 Packard two-door hardtop, which was called in the advertising a Starlight. It's a pillarless two-door hardtop. With that particular car, I always liked them in that there were 6 new ones brought into Australia in 1958, and I think there's still a couple of them around, but they're not for sale. So I thought to myself, well, I better have a bit of a look-see, and I really want to get one of these cars at some stage, and maybe I could have an imported one. So I looked on the computer with eBay and the other sites for about 6 months, and all of a sudden this car came up, and it was in California, which made it reasonably easy to get. And so yeah, a little bit of toing and froing and talking to the chap that had the vehicle for sale, and I ended up getting it, which was great. Now with the car itself, it's pretty rare because 1958's the last of the Packards, and of course with the 57 model Packard and the 58, they were both built by Studebaker, and realistically the features that are on them, yes, there's quite a number of Packard styling features, but they're definitely based on Studebaker bodies, so they're a little bit of a brick and brack type of car. Well, it was originally sold in a dealership in Texas. Well, the merger between Studebaker and Packard transpired midway through 1954. Wasn't really a merger, it was more of a buyout. Packard did have a little bit more money than Studebaker at the time. So obviously the lines themselves for Studebaker and Packard stayed the same in 1954. The merger didn't affect anything at all. But come the 1955 year for Packard, that was supposed to be their comeback year, and they threw a lot of money at what was to be both the 1955 and 56s, which were pretty similar.
Meet the big new President Classic with a bold new front end to add important strength to Studebaker's car of distinction among V8s. Big and solid, yet so sleek and graceful. The touch of the master stylist flows from headlight to tail light, from every angle, coming and going.
With that money that they threw at those cars, I think it was probably about 40 million, and I think they basically lost the lot, because the cars that they pumped out in the early stages of 1955, for at least the first 6 months, it was a problem with them because they had reliability issues. They had issues with the way that they were constructed. They had issues with the differentials, in that there was some diff and axle failures with them. There was quite a bit of fairly unique engineering in those 55 and 6 Packards, to do with the fact that a lot of the front ends of the different vehicles, depending on what type of series the car came from, a lot of them had a torsion bar front end, and so they had little electric motors underneath the car to basically stabilise the car and make it so that if you filled up the boot with a whole bunch of luggage, the rear of the car would actually rise back to the same height that it was when it was prior to people getting into it. So yeah, they brought out the 55s, and they were hopeful from Packard's point of view of selling about 120,000 of them, but I think that they only sold about half that. So obviously that was a bit of a minor problem from a corporate point of view, because most of the money that was used for the 1956 year was used with, 55 and 56 year was used with Packard, and Studebaker, yeah, they had a fairly radical changeover in 56, but there wasn't much money involved. Vince Garden did the styling for that. Yeah, the Packards soldiered on into 1956 following the 55 year, and they'd basically fixed up their reliability problems. There didn't seem to be anything much more to go along as far as that was concerned, but unfortunately their reputation had been somewhat sullied, and the 56s were a real hard sell, and I think for the 1956 year the figure was less than 30,000 cars, so it was a big fall, and the decision was made after that hey, yes, we still have to keep on making some Packards for at least 57 and hopefully 58. And that decision was made along the lines that, well, hopefully we're going to have enough sales to keep the dealers happy, and maybe if we make a little bit of money over the next couple of years, we'll be able to bring back a more traditional, larger Packard, but it never happened. The first vehicle that was released in 1958 was the Packard Hawk, which of course is also a two-door pillarless hardtop. But of course with it was based on the Hawk line from Studebaker. With the Packard Hawk they made 588 of them. With this vehicle that I've got here, being just the plain Packard Starlight hardtop, they made 675 of them. With the Packard four-door sedan, they made exactly 1,200 of them for 1958, and to finish it off, they made some station wagons, and there was 159 of them. So you can tell that it was not a big year as far as sales were concerned for Packard, and it wasn't expected to be. It was just really a bit of a run-out situation in respect to the fact that the corporation was required to sell its cars to its dealers, so that the dealers weren't placed in a position where they were able to say to the company that they were reneging on their contracts. They were actually still supplying cars. Whether people bought them or not was beside the point. So yeah, it was a little bit of a strange thing, but I like this particular car here. It's one of about the last 250 Packards that was ever built. Well, with this particular car, it's now got roughly 94,000 original miles on it. I've only driven it about 2,500 of those miles, but I've had the car for the last 3 and a bit years, and I just like it because it's of its time. It's a real time capsule.